What is emotion? Emotion is a complex state of feeling that results in physical and psychological changes that influence thought and behavior, and is associated with a range of psychological phenomena including temperament, mood, and personality. There are three main categories of emotional theories: psychological, neurological, and cognitive. The first one is psychological, meaning responses in the body are the cause of emotions. The second is neurological. The brain is responsible for emotional responses, and the last is cognitive. Thoughts and other mental activities have a big role in emotions. Evolutionary theory of emotions. Emotions are crucial in the development and survival of mankind, since they help people respond at a rapid rate to situations that are triggered by stimuli in their surrounding environment. Charles Darwin, who was an English naturalist and geologist, best known for his contribution to the science of evolution, is the one that said that emotions evolved due to humans having to adapt to the social standards of the era. Just like our ancestors had to adapt to their surroundings to survive, such as fighting predators and gathering food, we adapted by being able to interpret other people's emotions and respond correctly using critical thinking. According to the theory of emotions, human emotion exists to increase our chances of becoming successful and, most importantly, surviving. By understanding and connecting with another human being emotionally, we are able to build relationships. These relationships could be affectionate, which help us find a mate and reproduce, or could be violent and could trigger a fight or flight instinct depending on the individual. We also are able to connect emotionally with animals, which help us keep away from danger such as an animal hissing or betraying signs of hatred. Our emotions of fear help us understand to stay away and escape being in more unnecessary danger. Cognitive appraisal theory. The cognitive appraisal theory was developed by a man named Richard Lazarus. His contribution to this theory is so great that it is also referred to the Lazarus theory of emotions. The cognitive appraisal theory states that thinking must first occur before experiencing emotions. This theory states that a certain event must occur that has a stimulus that triggers an emotion that we have experienced in the past. In most cases, cognitive appraisal happens in scenarios that do not have an obvious reasoning behind it or how you should react in that certain scenario. An example of cognitive appraisal would be hiking a mountain when you suddenly encounter a mountain lion. Since you would automatically believe that you're in danger, it would lead to an emotional experience of fear and the physical reactions associated with fight or flight response. Cognitive appraisal is used casually in everyday interactions and has two steps: primary appraisal and secondary appraisal. Primary appraisal refers to your first instinct to an obstacle in your way and how it would affect you personally, while secondary appraisal refers to deciding on how you should solve or respond to a sequence of events. Facial feedback theory. The facial feedback theory includes the idea that your facial expression in any emotional situation adds to experiencing that certain emotion, such as smiling when you're happy and frowning when you're sad. Charles Darwin and William James are both scientists who stated that physical results of reacting to a sequence of events is not only a response, but also has a huge impact on how that emotion is experienced. Some believers of this theory concur that the way you use your facial muscles have the greatest impact on what emotion you'll experience. An example would be the idea of faking a smile while you're upset or sad until you actually turn happy. The theory works vice versa, such as if you frown or make sad faces, your emotion will eventually mirror your facial expressions.
James Longa theory. This theory states that external stimulus leads to a physiological response, and the emotional response that follows is based on how you interpret those physical reactions. According to this theory, processing emotion would go as follows. An event would lead to arousal in a human, and the brain would then interpret that arousal into an emotion. In the example below, the event of seeing a snake would trigger shaking in a human. The brain would then interpret that arousal as the emotion of fear. Origins of the James Longa theory. This theory on emotion was developed independently by American psychologist William James in 1884 and Danish physician Carl Lange in 1885. Lange tried to give a simple explanation of his theory by relating it to common sense. He said if someone saw something scary, he would feel afraid and run, and his autonomic nervous system would stimulate his muscles and cause the heart to beat faster. Only after these changes would the emotion of fear appear, according to this theory. This was akin to why the assertion, "my heart beats faster because I'm afraid," makes more sense than, "I'm afraid because my heart beats faster." Criticism of the James-Lange theory. Although the James-Lange theory was an early explanation for emotion, it was not without criticism. In a study done by Gregorio Marañón in 1924, patients were injected with adrenaline to see physical symptoms. However, only two-thirds of the patients reported physical symptoms, which showed that the adrenaline induced some sensations that may have been reminiscent of other previous emotional experiences, but it did not renew or revive them. Despite studies disproving certain aspects of this theory, it still has some merits and stands as an important step towards a greater understanding of emotion. Origins of the Cannon-Barr theory. This theory was proposed by physiologist Walter Bradford Cannon and his doctoral student Philip Bard in the 1920s. It was developed in response to the James-Lange theory for three main shortcomings. The first one was physiological arousal can occur without experiencing emotion, such as how a beating heart during a run is not a sign of fear. Secondly, people can have similar patterns of physiological arousal. For example, a fast beating heart and fast breathing can occur when someone is mad as well as when someone is afraid. Thirdly, emotions occur too rapidly for physiological reactions to shape emotions. An example of this is how hearing a sudden sound in a dark room would cause an immediate occurrence of fear before any physiological response. Cannon-Barr theory. The Cannon-Barr theory states that emotion results when the thalamus sends a message to the brain in response to a stimulus, resulting in a physiological reaction. According to this theory, processing emotion would go as follows. An event would lead to simultaneous arousal and emotion. In the example below, the event of seeing a black widow spider invokes the physical reaction of trembling and the emotion of fear simultaneously, instead of separately, as it would have occurred in the James-Lange theory. How the Cannon-Barr theory was tested. To support his theory that emotions and physiological reactions occur simultaneously, Walter Cannon surgically removed the sympathetic nervous system of a cat. By severing the nervous system, Cannon wanted to see if the cats would display emotion, without physical feedback by the nervous system. After the experiment, Cannon found that even though the cat's somatic signals were gone, the cats still displayed emotions, such as fear, pleasure, and anger. This suggested that the experience of emotions and physical reaction occurs at the same time. However, some psychologists have doubts about animal studies being used as evidence for this theory. It is not always true that these findings can be generalized to humans. Schachter-Singer theory. This theory is also known as a two-factor theory of emotion. The Schachter-Singer theory states that physiological arousal occurs first, and then the individual must identify the reason for arousal and label it as an emotion. After a person is exposed to stimulus, they perceive it and have a general autonomic arousal, which leads to cognition of a particular emotional experience. This feeds back to the stimulus, so if the human is ever exposed to the stimulus again, they interpret it faster with the context of the previous experience. Origin of the Schachter-Singer theory. This theory was proposed in the 1960s during what is called the Cognitive Revolution by Stanley Schachter and Jerome Singer. They believed that physical arousal played a primary role in emotions, much like the James-Lange theory, but also believed that it could not alone be the cause of emotions. They believed that physiological arousal was cognitively interpreted within the context of each situation to produce emotions. Basically, the production of emotion in this theory is dependent on one's physiological state in addition to the context of their situation. Criticisms of the Schachter-Singer theory. Although the Schachter-Singer theory did propel a huge amount of further research on emotion, it has always been criticized for several reasons. One reason is that sometimes emotions are experienced before we have the chance to think of them. Another reason is that this theory discounts much of the emotional processing done by the central nervous system and instead focuses on the autonomic nervous system. And thirdly, others have tried to replicate Schachter and Singer's research to confirm the theory, but have not always achieved the same success.
How social media impact humans emotionally. From these studies, it appears that many users who are addicted to Facebook use the site as a way of gaining attention and boosting their self-esteem. But can this behavior have negative effects on mental health and well-being? What is interesting is that the researchers found that people who are more anxious and socially insecure are more likely to use the social networking site. Those who said their lives had been worsened by using social media also report feeling less confident when they compared their achievements against their friends. Furthermore, the survey revealed that two-thirds of the participants report difficulty relaxing and sleeping after using the sites, while 55% said they felt worried or uncomfortable when they were unable to log on to their social media accounts. How social media impact humans emotionally continued. Past research supports their personal experience and shows that while many who use social media feel connected to others, it can also leave others feeling frustrated, lonely, and depressed. Recent research has documented how technology and social networking sites such as Facebook and Instagram, in particular, have given rise to a growing obsession with impression management and self-presentation online. Within friendships, excessive monitoring of others' activities can also trigger feelings of exclusion, like why wasn't I invited to this party, and in turn increase social anxiety. Sites like Facebook, users frequently engage in social comparison processes that can then generate emotional distress. In terms of identity development and psychological health, research suggests that young users report increased self-esteem and general well-being following instances of positive feedback on social networking sites. A social media study. A study recently published online in the journal Computers and Human Behavior offers context to these earlier findings and suggests when we are feeling blue, we use social media sites such as Facebook to find friends that are also having a bad day, suffer a setback, or going through a tough time in their lives. During the experiment, researchers gave participants a facial emotion recognition test and randomly told them their performance was terrible or excellent to put them in a positive or negative mood. The individuals were then asked to review profiles on a new social networking site. The profiles used dollar sign or heart icons to make users appear more successful and attractive or unattractive and successful. All profile pictures were blurred and the status updates were relatively mundane and similar in tone. Psych Central reports. Overall, the researchers found that people tended to spend more time on the profiles of people who were rated as successful and attractive. If you need a self-esteem boost, you're going to look at people worse off than you. One of the great appeals of social networking sites is that they allow people to manage their moods by choosing who they want to compare themselves to.
The effects of social media have definitely changed people. While there are many pros, there are also many cons. The pros are that grades have improved and absences were reduced. 59% of student users report that they use social networking to discuss educational topics, and 50% of students use the websites to talk about school assignments. Students also have easy and free access to resources online to help them learn and understand. Information on social media spreads faster online than any other media. More than 50% of learning about the news happens on social media. Social networking provides academic research to everyone with online access, allowing people to access previously unavailable resources. People also tend to make new friends on social media. 57% of online teens report making new friends online. Being a part of a social networking site can also increase a person's quality of life and reduce the risk of health problems. Now, the cons are that social media has enabled cheating on school assignments.
Studies have shown that students who went online while studying scored 20% lower on tests. The IRS trains agents also scan social media for information that can help them resolve taxpayer cases. Another con is that there are many sexual predators online who find, stalk, and assault victims through social media. Social media also enables the spread of false rumors and unreliable information. 49.1% of users have read false news on social media. Studies have shown that sites such as Facebook influence you via advertisements to spend more money. It can also trigger a sense of exclusion, envy, and loneliness. How technology ruins our lives. Technology, while it's useful, it has reduced our face-to-face interaction with people. It has also contributed to cheating in relationships due to the easy access to dating services. Studies have shown that exposure to violence and sex online has increased aggression and chances of teen pregnancy. There are also people who have lost their jobs due to technology, due to the things they have put online. And many health problems can also arise from technology, such as vision problems. You can also lose your hearing, you can have neck strain, and you can also just be sitting too much. Does technology feed psychological disorders? One disorder is OCD, which can manifest when people leave their house without their phones. Also, social phobias happen since most interactions are behind a screen where no one can see how you look. Cyberbullying can also cause psychological disorders since when people are hurt online, they just feel scared to go out and interact with people. It can also cause anxiety due to constant checking of the phone for someone's message.